This midwife keeps records for every family in the brigade, indicating which method of contraception is being used. Here, she explains a record book for IUD insertions. Barefoot Dr. Xiao Shu delivers a once-a-month birth control pill that is being tested on her commune near Shanghai. The factory's barefoot doctors keep track of the women's menstrual cycles and deliver birth control pills at the proper time.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just saw clips from several different countries, China, India, Japan, all as part of this global family planning and Planned Parenthood movement. Now, there's the abortion component, which is, of course, extremely controversial, and there's the whole left and right and pro-choice and pro-life movement contained within that. And then there's the mostly less controversial contraceptives, so-called spacing of children issues. None of that is the direct issue. The real issue is that these industrialists have taken the official overt United Nations UNESCO vehicle and inputted their personal agenda into it. You see, the Rockefellers had the Population Council started in the mid-50s by John D. Rockefeller III, brother to David Rockefeller and Nelson Rockefeller, the former vice president. And that Population Council spent hundreds of millions, if not billions, every year in all these countries working together with those other industrial foundations, those extremely generous technocrat foundations with so much money, all attempting to drive down the reproduction rate through propaganda and centralized control of an authoritarian government. Did you see the clip where they make home visits in every country? Did you see how China, which became the nightmare one-child authoritarian state, started off on kind of small population control, only 2 children. It's only suggested. You only have contraceptives and other family planning materials. There's nothing forced, except that there's local, state, and national health officials coming to check up on you, coming to make sure you fit in. So I want to show you another clip, which is of Taiwan and its particular family planning case study. It parallels directly with this UNESCO document, which came out in 1973, Mass Media Family Planning and Development. You just saw in the other clip how they admit they're using propaganda centralized at the state control to implement and pressure the population to adopt contraceptives, abortions, sterilizations, and other means of keeping down the population. Now, when countries like China get out of control, you have to also look at countries like India, which were sold on the soft approach, but then all these abuses happened afterwards. There were compulsory sterilization. There were mothers who were not informed that they were getting sterilized. There were camps where they took women and sterilized them en masse in India. There were other abuses in countries like Peru, Indonesia, Mexico, where social workers and eugenicists had targets for the number of people they were supposed to sterilize per month or per year, and they received cash rewards or little medals to coerce and lie to the masses, the people, the indigenous populations, and the uneducated, illiterate mothers, and to sterilize them and end their line forever. Let's go to that clip now and see what the soft approach looks like. But don't forget what the tyranny looks like too. Again, family planning by the Population Council, Rockefeller created and sponsored.
Mr. S.M. Keeney, who has helped with the development of IUD programs in Taiwan, Turkey, Korea, India, Pakistan, Philippines, and Thailand. The application of the widely publicized Taichung project to the island-wide family planning program. The neighborhoods were divided into areas where personal contact was made with the wives and both husbands and wives. After the training, Mrs. Lin is ready to start work. Her first stop is at the Township Registration Office. Here she collects the names and addresses of all the married women, 20 to 39, with 3 or more children, one being a son. She plans to see all the married women with at least 3 children and one being a son. For each case responding, a coupon is filled out and sent to the Population Study Center for evaluation. The coupons are hand-tabulated. Such factors as age, education, number of children who referred the case, and location are tabulated. The Population Study Center conducts an island-wide fertility survey. a follow-up sample of loop acceptors and coupon holders, and other studies which evaluate the national program.
So again, you saw where they're taking records and tabulating them into centralized population databases, all coordinated from the wealthiest elite foundations and the very computer companies which developed a lot of this software. So who's running this centralized global population center, and what happens when the birth rate doesn't go down fast enough? Let's look at some of the proposals brought up in Ecoscience, the 1977 nightmare document by current White House czar John P. Holdren and his cohort Paul Ehrlich of the population bomb. He spoke about how the law regulates that other highly personal matters, for example, having more than one spouse at a time, isn't allowed. Why should the law also not be able to prevent a person from having more than 2 children? The development of a long-term sterilizing capsule that could be implanted under the skin and removed when pregnancy is desired opens additional possibilities for coercive fertility control. The capsule could be implanted at puberty and might be removable with official permission for a limited number of births. We're talking about life under a global system, where indeed it has been concluded that compulsory population control laws, even including laws requiring compulsory abortion, could be sustained even under the United States Constitution if the population crisis became sufficiently severe to endanger the society. Martial law under an emergency. That's what these people are writing about. And this system is absolutely authoritarian in its bent. Now, the Rockefeller Foundation and other major funds developed the Norplant implant, which would do just what this quote described, prevent people from being able to reproduce without government authority. Now, there's also something even more wicked developed by the Population Council, funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, all backed by the Rockefeller family. Starting in 1968, they looked at how to produce vaccines for male and then also female infertility. Then by 1988, they had direct proposals they were funding, including the study of a sperm immobilizing factor found in human serum, research on human anti-sperm antibodies, and the development of an anti-fertility vaccine. They also funded research on a potential contraceptive vaccine based on beta HCG synthesized in bacteria. And then by 1997, they had a working model. I've got it right here: fertility regulating and immunotherapeutic vaccines reaching human stage trials. These are vaccines which, when a woman is pregnant, will prompt an immunoresponse, similar to if they had tetanus or numerous other diseases, and abort the hormonal pregnancy response and prevent the baby from coming to term. That is what we have on the field, even as the Rockefeller Foundation continues to fund vaccine and genetically modified foods. Eugenics has been a long way through the overt eugenics movements of the earlier part of the 20th century, whereas in the post part, the after World War II phase was far more covert. And you can see already where they're using vaccines, food, sterilants, and water, and other bizarre proposals to begin to literally control the population, as well as holding it hostage to supposed environmental factors. Then there's where eugenics gets into foreign policy. Starting under the LBJ administration, Skull and Bones and Bush brother under the skin, William Draper, began advising LBJ on the need for the USAID agency, which could provide birth control in the third world for overpopulated countries. That led directly into the Nixon phase, where you had Henry Kissinger proposing the use of food as a weapon, and his other draconian proposals under National Security Memorandum number 200. Would food be considered an instrument of national power? Is the U.S. prepared to accept food rationing to help people who won't control their population growth? Family planning performance and population control should be taken into account for appraisal of assistance requirements by USAID, meaning that the degree to which they reduce their population numbers should account for how much food aid they're going to receive. That's a starvation food as a weapon policy. It's absolutely disgusting, but unfortunately, it's nothing new. It's something Bertrand Russell, the English mathematician and supposed genius, came up with back in the earlier part of the 20th century when he proposed what amounts to an international food authority to, quote, deal with this problem of increasing population and decreasing food supplies, the old Malthusian formula, and saying it will be necessary to find ways of preventing an increase in world population. If this is to be done other than by wars, pestilence, and famines, it will demand a powerful international authority. This authority should deal out the world's food to the various nations in proportion to their population. If any nation subsequently increased its population, it should not on that account receive any more food, blackmail by starvation for overpopulation. Therefore, the motive for not increasing population would be very compelling. That's from 1953, The Impact of Science on Society. But those exact same proposals, or very similar proposals, came out in 1977, again, in Ecoscience, written by Holdren and Ehrlich. They said perhaps those agencies, combined with the United Nations and UNEP population agencies, might eventually be developed into a planetary regime of an international superagency for population, resources, and environment. Such a comprehensive planetary regime could control the development, administration, conservation, and distribution of all natural resources, including all food on the international market. The planetary regime might be given responsibility for determining the optimum population for the world and for each region, and for arbitrating various countries' shares within their regional limits. Again, they're going to create a global superstructure that will gather all the food and then ration it to the countries, holding it over the heads of those that are overpopulated and underdeveloped until they curb their own population to meet the given food rationing. That is absolute tyranny, but that is the kind of direction we're heading under the population control management system of this modern day eugenics system under the New World Order. Ladies and gentlemen, they have put fluoride in our water for almost the better part of 50, 60 years, maybe even longer in some areas. They have proposed putting lithium and other drugs in our water to mass medicate people against their will. They have created genetically modified crops, which experts like Jeffrey Smith say cause sterility in the third generation in lab rats. Now, what happens if they feed Africa or other parts of the developing world genetically modified crops against their will or without their knowledge or through an international food agency, and it doesn't even occur to them until 60 years down the line that everyone's sterilized from eating this food? It's outrageous. But the Gates Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation are part of the very companies pushing for the new green revolution through genetically modified foods in Africa as we speak, and the exact same foundations are behind the global initiative to vaccinate everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, these population control measures and so many others we didn't have time to get to tonight present a children of men scenario. We're going to wind up unable to reproduce anymore someday. They've written about this 80, 100 years ago, how they don't want people to be able to reproduce at will anymore, only with state authority, and how they're going to use artificial fertility to sell the ability to have babies at a premium. It's all covered in Endgame and other resources we've brought up on the show. If you haven't seen this incredible production, it covers the whole spectrum of the official eugenics movement all the way down the line to the DNA database-based race-specific bioweapons that they may use against us in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the endgame times, and if we don't face the facts, we're going to see a winter, a demographic winter on life as we know it, the societies we've enjoyed. You've seen the Georgia Guidestones calling for humanity to be under 500 million. You've seen all the other elites calling for a population under 2 billion. are under 1 billion. They want a mass extermination, and they are perfectly ready to get rid of the masses as we enter the next phase of the technological revolution, as the New World Order state attempts to take full power in the Republic, in our personal independence, and attack the family and individual. I'm Aaron Dykes. We'll be back with more special INFOWARS.com reports in the future. Thanks for joining us.